Hello, everyone. Welcome to June's TST on June 8th, 2021. My name is Abby Ekenezer, and I am the chair of Women in Film's second Tuesday event. Before we start, we acknowledge we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. We would also love to thank our community partners and our sponsors. Tonight, our second Tuesday roundtable discussion is about the state of recovery and the film industry. We are very happy to have with us Kate Becker of King County Creative, Amy Lillard of Washington Filmworks, Chris Swenson of the Office of Film and Music, Vicki Berglund of the King County Executive Film Advisory Board, Lacey Levitt, producer and co-chair of the Film Task Force, Myron Partman, Chameleon Production Services and co-chair of the Seattle Film Task Force, Melissa Purcell of IATSE, Local 488, and Ben Andrews from the Seattle Film Summit, and Virginia Bogart, my co-host, and co-board of the Women and Film Seattle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again. I'm so glad to see you all here. We, Women in Film, wanted to take this opportunity on Women in Film's second Tuesday to provide some information about what's going on in regard to recovery and our local film industry, and also spread some information about what is going on at the state, county, and city levels. And let the community know what is happening with the future of the Seattle Film Commission. And before we get into that, I'm going to jump right in and start the ball rolling with Kate Becker. Hey, Kate. So King County Creative is so very supportive of our industry. Can you tell us about what King County and Executive Dow Constantine and you are doing to nurture and promote film production here?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you for the softball question, Virginia. Happy to be here with you all tonight. So a little over 2 years ago, I left the Office of Film and Music and came to work with King County Executive Dow Constantine, who is a champion of the creative economy and wanted to launch a county-wide initiative to really support people working in the creative economy and culture. So we launched a film initiative first in September of 2019. Some of you were there with us out at a Twin Peaks location in North Bend. And that was an initiative to really make film production easier and more expedient in King County. What we heard from all of you, from film industry professionals, was that it took too long to get a permit and it cost too much. So we addressed those things right away. And the executive made an executive order announcing that all film permits would be $25 in King County. They would have a turnaround time of about 3 days, and that all land and buildings in King County were available for film production at $25 a day. So that was the start of it. We have a music initiative as well, but I will keep that separate and just focus on the film work we're doing here now. So then the pandemic hit. Well, film production was going well in King County. We were getting applications for far more permits. More people were working across the county in film, and then COVID hit. So we knew that there was an episodic production that wanted to be working, and we knew that we needed to find a way to get people back to work. So about 1.5 years ago, Vicki Berglund Davenport was scouting for a film. And we saw a warehouse that we thought, oh my goodness. So took it to the executive, and he signed on right away to say, yes, let's do this. So we got busy converting a 117,000 square foot warehouse on Harbor Island into a film production studio. Currently has 2 sound stages in it. There is an episodic production, which many of you know about, that has been working in there for the last few months. Vicki is the stage manager for that production. And that's a nutshell version of where we're at right now, Virginia.
Phew.
Well, I would like to add one other thing if I could.
Oh, please do.
Transmitted a $3 million budget to support the development of Harbor Island Studios, and the King County Council has passed that.
Well, that is
Yes.
fantastic.
That's amazing.
We also have an Executive Film Advisory Board. Several of the members of the Executive Film Advisory Board are on this panel with us tonight, and they have been meeting weekly since last summer to advise on this project. So it is an incredible group that has recently expanded from 11 to 15 members.
Fantastic.
That's amazing, Kate. Thank you. So I have a question for Vicky. Can you tell us about King County Harbor Island stages? What is the status of the stages right now, and how do people get into these studios? And also, how can we make access equitable?
All good questions. As Kate referred to, it's a King County owned building. It's a 117,000 square foot building on the Duwamish River on Harbor Island. It has 2 stages. One stage is about 18,000 square feet. The other stage, stage 2, is about 11,000 square feet. It has power. It has 2 different 3-leg 200-volt power for the stages. There is a mill that takes up 2 of the bay doors, and there's a total of 6 bay doors for load and unload. Fire lanes are painted, and there is a back warehouse that's approximately 30,000 square feet. It has 4 to 5 permanent offices, a downstairs and an upstairs, 2 built-in bathrooms, and what we used for COVID office and a conference room. We also built some temporary facades, for lack of a better way to put it, in that encompass our AD department, art department, wardrobe, transpo, paint, special effects. There's base camp parking. There's crew parking that's a 4-minute walk due to COVID, basically. And the roof is a to die for view of the city and of Mount Rainier. It has an incredible vibe to it. Everyone seems very happy coming there. And King County Executive and Kate and the rest of the team have worked really hard to bring this to fruition, but we're not finished yet. This pilot project that's in there right now was in there at the end of February, and is still in there to end of July-ish. And it was our pilot project. We have learned a lot of what is working and what still needs improvement. And I have a survey that I took of the first cast and crew. I'm honored to be the first stage manager. And the survey basically talks to the first cast and crew in Harbor Island Studios, because their experience of it is really important. So I should have those results coming up soon. And then you asked how to get into the studios.
Yes.
And okay.
And how to make it equitable. How are
Right.
you making it equitable?
Thank you. The EFAB, the Executives Film Advisory Board, the 15 people that Kate mentioned, are taking on that work right now. The initial push of this group was to get this pilot project in there and landed. And we're turning our focus now to being able to vet proposals. We need to we basically need to advise the executive how to look at the proposals, and the executive's values are jobs, equity, green filmmaking, and I'm forgetting the 4th one, Kate.
Apprenticeships and learning opportunities.
Mentorships, that's right. And so all of this is so new that I may not have full depth and breadth of answers for all of your questions, but that's what I know for right now.
Okay, and then I wanted to follow up. You mentioned the King County Film Advisory Board. What exactly do they do?
And Kate, can I have you answer that?
Oh, sure, I'd love to.
Sure,
So
Kate.
there have been things to figure out along the way that have needed consultation on a regular basis. At one point, I tried to make the meetings every other week, and we quickly went back. We did it 1 week and then quickly went back to meeting weekly. Lacey serves on the Executive Film Advisory Board, and Vicki does as well. And Melissa Purcell has joined us in a temporary arrangement recently. So, but Vicki and Lacey have been there throughout, and they know that we have had to troubleshoot every single week. We've had to figure things out. To move this quickly with a massive project in a political environment just takes some thinking, and we wanted to make sure we were upholding what the film industry needed while simultaneously making it work within the reality of the environment we were in.
Thank you for that, Kate.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it's, thank goodness we finally have stages. You know, I'd say that is what has been one of the main things has been lacking, you know, aside from work, having stages to go to, cover sets to go to. So thank you for that. You know, thank you for finding the warehouse, and thank you King County for making it happen.
It is my honor to do this work with you all. And I just want to let you know that we have hardly told anyone about this thing, and there has been significant demand for it.
Wow, that's great. Can you
I
imagine?
haven't marketed it at all. Sorry, Virginia.
I was going to say, can you imagine when we start promoting it?
Right.
So, Amy.
And the question I'd have too is, when actually would that be? Do we know when we would actually promote that?
We do, Myron. January 3rd, 2022. The beginning of next year is when we would actually start marketing it.
Can I ask a quick question also? How does the wait list look now? Like, say for, especially for those projects that, you know, might not have like the big bucks or anything, that would like to get in there because they're, you know, about inclusivity or some of the lower income style productions.
So there has been solid and consistent advocacy to make sure that as we develop this plan, we center jobs, but we also center access and equity. So we are working on figuring that out. I do have a big announcement to make about this studio, but I'd like to make it later in our discussion if that works well for everyone.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Okay.
That's great. We like a little present. We like looking forward to another little present. So I'm gonna move on to Amy Lillard, and ask you, so what's been going on in general in the state? You know, what productions have shot recently? Is there anything happening now? And what's on the horizon?
That's a lot of questions.
I know.
So I first want to thank Virginia and Abby for you guys continuing to do this. I feel like it's such a valuable asset to the community, and I know how much work it takes to like we're all like, it's like herding cats trying to get us all in one place at one time. So thank you for, you know, inviting me personally, but also like bringing this discussion to the community. So thanks. So yeah, I mean, so you know, we are seeing an explosion of work across the state of Washington, not only through the production incentive program, but also through the film office. You know, the film office division is such an underserved conversation because we are most often the first point of contact for anyone looking to film in the state of Washington. So, you know, we're seeing an uptick in commercial work. We're seeing an uptick in nonfiction television. We're seeing an uptick of those crazy but really lucrative photo shoots for magazines, for example. So we're seeing work come back to the state of Washington, which is really encouraging. You know, in terms of the incentive program specifically, we had this embarrassment of riches this year in that all of the projects that we had approved last year were not able to film. And so all of that money rolled over to 2021. And so we've had a lot of money to allocate this year. We started very early in the year with a feature film out of Spokane called Boone. And then we have another project that we have supported, which I can neither confirm nor deny is filming in the Seattle area at Harbor Island Studios. Can't confirm or deny that, but maybe be there. So, but above and beyond that, we are in the process right now of contracting with several other productions that have been approved for funding. We can't name them by name because they're not under contract yet, but we are going to see more projects coming through the incentive program. And then above and beyond that, we have applications that we're reviewing right now. I can say very comfortably, I think that we are one application away from being out of funding for this year. But again, what a great story to tell, right? We are always in the position, I think, with Harbor Island Studios and with the incentive, like people want to be here. They need the incentives, like whether it's the studio, whether it's the incentive money to come here to make things happen.
Right, that's always the case, right? You know, that other people offer a little bit more than we do.
Yeah.
And yeah, my fear, and I think everybody's fear, is where we lose production that way.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, having done this job for 15 years, as many of you know, the film commissioner for 15 years, there is this, you know, really interesting conversations and quite a bit of momentum around supporting film in general. I mean, I can give you a couple of very specific examples, but you know, one of them is we work so in our position, because we do economic development, we work very closely with the Department of Commerce, the Department of Revenue, and the Governor's Office. And very recently, we worked closely with Commerce to create a, there's a rainbow outside of my window, so I'm a little distracted by that, I apologize. But we worked with Commerce to put together a presentation for a Senate committee during the last legislative session. And you know what it was called? Film and the Creative Economy. You know, we as industry, we as leaders within the industry are constantly talking about film as the cornerstone of the creative economy. I believe that. Many of us here in this, you know, conversation believe it. Film is such a great way to get good wages, and you know, when they're it's union work, health and retirement benefits, which is what Washington FilmWorks supports through the incentive program. But when we worked with Commerce, Director Lisa Brown, the head of the Department of Commerce, sat in this conversation in the Senate committee and talked about, if you want to support the creative economy, one of the best things that you can do as legislators is support an increase in the incentive, right? So we worked so closely with them, and you know, to have this conversation and to prepare, you know, people to, you know, to recognize that film is that good investment. I do think that it is a great compliment to the industry in general for showing up in Olympia every single film day. Raise your hand if you've been to film day. Okay, yep. That matters, and it's showing up in these conversations now. You know, I have not seen this kind of a momentum ever, right? So I am at once hopeful and cautious, but I have other examples too, but I don't want to monopolize the conversation. But my point being is, I think that there's this really interesting, unique opportunity in front of us in this moment moving forward, especially as, you know, we think about recovering from this pandemic. Film is immediate jobs. You can, you know, scout something and be in production within 10 days, right? Vicky, right? Like scouting and you're there, right? Yes. And so, you know, if you're asking me what I'm doing this year as the Washington State Film Commissioner, you know, we are capitalizing on the momentum. If I'm being honest, we are spending, like, if I'm looking at the work plan for Washington FilmWorks and our staff members, we are absolutely planning for a legislative push in 2022.
Oh, Amy, that was amazing. That actually goes into some of the questions that I had, right? I know that, like, getting involved in film myself, it's just been one of those amazing experiences, and seeing some of the projects that have come here to film has just been like awe-inspiring. Like it, in talking about recovery specifically, we all know that film is a numbers game, right? And over the last couple of years, the film community has grown so much, and we've been seeing an influx in projects. Can't we say that film is a major revenue generator, especially for those small businesses that are around the area that the film is happening? And how exactly do we make this case?
Ooh, I love that question. Thank you. So one of the stories that I love to tell about film, so again, being in the position that Washington Filmworks is, and Kate is in, and Chris is in, we do economic development. We are responsible for getting you guys work. That is what we do for a living, right? So we put you to work and we put money into the local businesses. So that's how we define our success. And so I tell this story all the time about, we get, as those who participated in the incentive program know, we get every single receipt from every single project that has ever filmed, right? My poor finance person. But we look at them, and what we did is we did this like assessment. In looking at budgets, only 5% of spending goes to film businesses necessarily. But it goes to all of those things and all of those businesses that support film, right? We buy office supplies, we buy construction materials, we buy, we go to thrift stores and buy props. Like we do all of these things, right? So film is not just about film, right? It is about all of those other businesses, and we're so good for the economy. The challenge is we need more incentive. We need not only the projects that sustain us on a regular basis that everyone works on in this community, but we need the bigger projects, right? We want more projects because we know we have some of the most talented crew and the most amazing locations. We have everything that we need except for the incentive dollars, right? So that's what we're focused on. I also, just from a data standpoint, because I have by definition become a data geek, the thing that I love, the thing that has kept me in this job for so long is the people that I work on behalf of, that we at Filmworks support. 50% of every single budget that comes through any incentive project goes directly in the pocket of the people who live and work in Washington, right? I want to see bigger projects with bigger budgets so you have bigger paychecks. That's what makes me excited. And that's what keeps me going, being honest. But that's kind of where we're at. So yes, it's really good for the economy, but there's so much opportunity for growth, for bigger projects and bigger things to come. We have to fight the good fight again. I know we've all been there. We're all exhausted by it. But again, I can make no guarantees. I do not know what's going to happen. But can we, Montana just went to 12 million. Oregon has a bill in, Salem taking them to 20 million. Can we just be competitive, right?
Yeah.
Right. But momentum, recovery, you people that we love in this industry showing up to do the work. Like there's something really interesting happening right now that I think makes possibility happen. There are no guarantees, right? At the end of the day, it's not going to be me that gets it done. It is going to be this community doing the wonderful things that I've seen you do for so many years, making it happen. So I think we're going to try again. Lots of moving pieces, But I am planning to be an Olympian. I certainly hope that you join me there.
You will. It's funny that you mentioned office supplies and lumber. Abby and I were just talking about that. Like everybody gets, the benefit of the film industry here. Costco, all of the stores.
Goodwill.
Goodwill, right?
5% of spending goes to film, like literally film businesses. The rest of it impacts every part of our economy, as we all know, right?
Yeah, and every coffee shop.
Yeah.
Every coffee shop and maybe a liquor store too, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, you're definitely being honest. I can say that from the film set.
I will tell you that is not something that we will incentivize. For the record, we do not incentivize alcoholic purchases.
So with the good fight that you were talking about, Amy, and this goes to anyone, honestly, film productions are promising to be more inclusive. What ways have you seen this actually happen, and what ways are you actually encouraging it?
I mean, I'm happy to jump in, but please, everyone else join. We have a couple of really interesting things happening. We launched a pilot program. Pilot programs are our favorite phrase here this evening, right, Kate? We launched a pilot program, which I'm really proud of, called the Media Mentorship Program, where we partnered with the Spokane Film Project, and we partnered with Northwest Film Forum in Seattle. And we created an opportunity for 8 program participants to get education, mentorship, and access to productions. And so we went through this process. We have 8 people participating. Every project that gets funded by Washington Filmworks, we put the resumes forward of these program participants after they've been educated. I just need to very publicly thank Dave and his team for doing the boot camp with these program participants about how to be a great PA. And they donated those services, and I just give so much love to that. And then we did some community webinars. And then what happened was the program participants, we put all of their resumes forward. And if they get hired on a project that Washington Filmworks has funded, we will pay for the wages of them on that program. So it's a paid experience. It's a win for production. It's a win for the people, for the participants, and it's a win for our community. So the idea being, how do we get people of color and people from marginalized communities, give them access? Because we all hire from our network, and that's one thing that we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Melissa?
I just wanted to talk about, I mean, from your time with the Seattle Film Task Force, and there's quite a few Film Task Force members here, I think through the conversations that we also had over the last year and a half around diversity, equity, and inclusion work, the whole idea of the Film Task Force was that the work that we did there would expand outward into our sectors and our email lists and the people that we knew. So I think that already we are seeing, what I've been seeing on sets is some new diversity that wasn't there previously, and awareness to work on inclusion. I mean, if you just follow Production Peeps Facebook page, sometimes the conversations there are a lot different right now, right, than they were 2 years ago. So I think it's certainly a work in progress. I know that I'm getting together with a few individuals around an idea of how film members that are already in our community, that are Black, that are BIPOC, that might not have access to more mainstream work and want access to mainstream work, how does that happen? Or how, as 48, we are craft specific, right? So making sure that people understand that if they are working as a grip or an electrician or a makeup artist or any of the crafts that we cover, that we are here and we welcome people to join. So it's just, again, it is always a networking thing, right? So if we can know one another more and know who's out there and connect the dots for everybody, I think that that's where we are all headed anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I like the buzz that's going on about diversity that's happening. I know we have a long ways to go, but I think there are definitely tiers. There are people who are skilled right now that could actually, if they knew somebody, they could actually get in and they could actually do the work. And then there are a lot of people who would entertain going into the business or want to, but just can't figure out how to get there. Not enough outreach to those folks. So they end up, doing some other job that they're not really very happy with, and they could actually be doing work in our industry with some good paying jobs. So this is a very, I would say, a very complex issue that has a lot of levels, and I do feel that we are tackling this issue. We're taking bites of this elephant. Let's put it that way. And I'm feeling pretty good about where we are, where we want to go. I guess to say.
Thank you, Myron. I also want to speak to those attending our Facebook Live event. If you have any questions, we will try to answer them as we go along. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can.
And we have a few already, but
Yeah.
we will get to them. So we heard from the county and the state, and we're going to get into what's going on at the city level. But let's address this vexing issue for all of us, the postponement of the Seattle Film Commission. And I'm going to ask you, Myron and Lacey, to tag team on this, but can you give us a little background of the Film Task Force story and the saga, and what is the state of the Seattle Film Commission at this point?
Myron, do you want me to start and then you can finish, or do you want to start and I can finish?
You're so much better at speaking publicly than I am. Go for it.
That's absolutely untrue. Well, you're gonna have to finish then. You're gonna have the hardest part. Well, I'll explain it to you, Virginia, who probably knows nothing about this because you're on the Seattle Film Task Force with us, as is Abby, as is Melissa. And of course, Chris is at the film office. So yeah, this is new information for a couple of you, plus those watching. But yeah, so we started, I think the very first Seattle Film Task Force meeting was February of 2020. We had one in-person meeting before the pandemic shut that all down. And we could, by the way, just spend the entire rest of the time talking about the conversations that we've had on the task force, specifically addressing systemic issues within the Seattle film industry. We're probably due to have a whole nother one just on that, because that's been such a major part of our work over the last year, which has been really fantastic, diving in, because, you know, we weren't working on productions for a while, so we got to sit around, for some of us, twice a week and have some really amazing, vulnerable and honest conversations with each other about what are, you know, not only the smaller micro issues we're dealing with, but also what are these big picture systemic issues in the film industry in general, but also specifically here in our area. And they are not problems. You know, I was hoping by the time we were opened up, we could, of course, have solved everything. But, you know, taking bites of the elephant, as Myron said, because it is a process. And it's been really nice. I'll just also say, while we're doing our work on the Seattle Film Task Force, having King County and having Washington Filmworks working in tandem, so the Venn diagram of the goals between these organizations in terms of recovery, in terms of addressing systemic issues, has been a wonderful experience. Not all of us can be on every board, although some of us are trying, but just knowing that we have committed partners on the county, city, and state level, like working towards similar goals, has been, for me personally, and I know for a lot of us, like a big part of what's kept us going over like a really horrible global pandemic where we weren't sure when we'd be able to like work and see each other again. So that has been, for me at least, a real silver lining of this time where we were cooped inside for a whole long part of it.
You know,
go ahead.
I just want to say, I know that Chris has to leave at 8, and we have a lot more to get into with you, Lacey, and you, Myron. So can we
skip to the, yeah. So the two biggest things that we've been tackling were systemic DEI issues, as well as the formation of a film commission. This was, Melissa can probably correct me on some of these issues, but there was a statement of legislative intent where the city council had asked the OED and Office of Film and Music to investigate creating a film commission. As I'm sure most of the people know who are watching this, we have been trying to get a film commission in place here at the city for about a decade now. The issue with having a commission, like There's a music commission, there is an arts commission. A commission is seated, and it is seated and it exists regardless of who is in office, who is running city council, who is running the mayor's office, who is running OED. If we have a film commission, we have some stability, we have protection, we have a seat at the table, no matter who is currently holding the gavel at that table. So this is of the utmost importance for all of us who have been on it, and it is our #1 goal. And we accomplished all the work that we needed to do to pass off to the Office of Economic Development and say, here's the blueprint. And we were patting ourselves on the back and being very excited and waiting to hear about, cool, what are the next steps? Because our year is about done. Oh, it's been a year and a half because, pandemic, but we were very excited to announce at the SIF event about a film commission. And then we got word from the acting Office of Economic Development director, because the former person who was in the job has left to go back to Portland. So we got word that they were putting a pause on the film commission. They have asked us to stay and continue to do our work as a film task force. We have been incredibly upset by this news. And we have been trying to talk to the city about this and try to come to some sort of, at least get a timeline on when could we have a commission and how can we move things forward. Can you guys please put out a public statement stating that there isn't going to be a film commission and your reasons why? And none of that has happened. So we have been rather frustrated. And to be clear, our frustration is pretty solely directed at the folks who are making these decisions at the Office of Economic Development head level, the deputy mayor level, and the mayor level. We have a lot of respect and love for Chris, and he is not the object of our ire, but I'm sure he's appreciating this uncomfortable conversation with him in one of the Brady Bunch boxes.
Right.
Let me just say too, just imagine if Seattle had a film commission that was actually not only Chris, now, if I understand right, Chris has been dedicated to just the film industry, but then he would have 15 people that would have his back.
Yeah.
He would have 15 people back. And think about that. And then also think about if the Seattle Film Commission was there, ordained by the city, ordained by the mayor's office, and no matter what administration come in, it's still there.
Yeah.
And we were able, as part of our final report, if we ever get a chance to show it to everybody, we're able to bring we're able to join in with Washington Film Works and the King County, and all kind of coalesce to make, to create some kind of core. And then we can all push for this, incentive program. And the advantage of having a commission over a film office is that the commission is film industry people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where the film office, you're looking at people that are they work for the city.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that industry people can do that the city can't do. We can advocate for certain things. We can dig in a little deeper into the DEI issues. So there are a lot of reasons to have a commission. So I just wanted to add on to that, because I think Lacey basically said everything that I was going to say. And really the advocacy for the DEI and economic growth and sustainability, just having stakeholders do that would just be amazing.
Yeah, and I guess my final word to add on to that too is that, the task force was created specifically to advise the city and to advise OFM and OED on film industry specific policy and advocacy. And we have said, here's our recommendations, start a film commission, and they are not listening. So I think that also proves why we need a film commission, because I think you're less likely to ignore a group that doesn't necessarily need to exist if you just don't want it to.
Yeah.
Can we let Let me let Chris say something now.
Yeah, I would, Chris, I would love to ask you some questions and just give us some information. Can you add any information about the status of the Film Commission, or explain to us the move of the OFM into the inclusive creative industry sector? What does this mean for film production and our industry, and what is happening to your position at the Office of Film and Music?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. Yes, I'm happy and would love to talk about all those things. And I can say, you know, this is the Film Commission is the ultimate issue here, and part of the conversation and the driver of this conversation, because it is an optic. It leads and lends itself to the optics of how the city supports the film industry. So I'm happy to talk about all of that and respond and also fill in some gaps and all of that. I loved working with the Film Task Force all this year, and so it's great to see everybody's face. It's been a little bit. So happy to do that. I also can stay a few minutes late because I'd love to also talk about what we're seeing with the industry here in Seattle since it reopened in August, and we began permitting that. And there's a bunch of things that are just kind of like on the process of as we move towards recovery too. So I'll start with the Film Commission and echo Myron and Lacey's comments and information that the Film Task Force was assembled with the primary duty to make recommendations on the Film Commission and present those to the Office of Economic Development and Office of Film and Music, and then the Office of then OED and OFM respond to the council directive, which is called the Statement of Legislative Intent, and say yes or no. And the Film Task Force charged into that in the first part of its existence and delivered. It gave the goods entirely to what it was asked to do in its advisory body. It even met the deadline, if I recall, of like June 30th or something like that in 2020. Now, I'll give a little context here before going into where the city and OED's decision to pause the Film Commission stems from and where it's going. And just say that when the Film Task Force delivered that in the middle of June, we were in the middle of a cultural and biological crisis with the murder of George Floyd and with the pandemic, and everything was dropped, literally everything. And one of the things that was dropped was, thanks for delivering this. We can't even look at this until September for the Film Commission work. So that was kind of the first step. Then when it got into September and October, the playing field had changed. One of the great recommendations I felt that the Film Task Force had included in its Film Commission recommendation was funding for the Film Commission to be able to lend to initiatives and other work for the city of Seattle to do based on its recommendations. And ensuring staffing was there to support the Film Commission as well. And even then, the playing field had changed. So there was no budget to do that because of the pandemic and because of the budget shortfalls for the city. There was even a potential loss of staffing at OFM during the budget process that the community and industry rallied around and gave information on, which was also paused, or which was halted. So a lot of things were happening in that development. And then kind of moving forward, the playing field continued to change with our director leaving and our new interim director and deputy director coming in, and then with a shifted focus to recovery from business as usual. And so to share kind of the background on that, the decision was made at the Office of Economic Development's leadership level to pause any statement of legislative intent response, any legislation, anything that was that was in that realm of new legislation, new development and things like that. So it wasn't just the Film Commission recommendation that was paused. And then the Film Task Force at that time was asked to continue their work, which is parallel to the Film Commission work, what the Film Commission work would be, and focus on the recovery efforts that the city are developing. So in a nut, and kind of boil it all down, the decision was made and to pause the Film Commission work and then to restart it in 2022. So nothing in 2021, just focused on recovery in 2021. And then to ask the Film Task Force members as individuals and as a whole to work and advise OED and the city on how to support the film industry in its work towards recovery. So those are the two, I think, broad points for the Film Commission. I appreciate and understand the frustration from the members and the Film Task Force as a whole in this pause and this work, because we the city, based on the advice from the Film Task Force, had developed about 90% of the legislation to get there. But the legislation is not the work. The work then starts after that is finished to get it passed, to get it seated, to get it started. So that's why the pause was made for that. So I'll pause there and see if there are any other questions about the Film Task Force. Actually, one more thing. I understand that was the second part of my comment about understand frustration, and I also really appreciate the time that the Film Task Force leadership and members have met with me and with the acting director Pamela Banks, and also with Deputy Mayor Tiffany Washington to talk about Film Task Force moving forward for the rest of this year, and then also the pause for the Film Commission. I think before handing it back for other questions about the Film Commission, you also echo Myron and Lacey's comments about the difference between a Film Commission and a Film Task Force is that a Film Commission is ordained, and so you as an advisory body can continue over administrative changes or administration changes or city council changes or directors and leaders within divisions and departments. It is it's an ordained thing that is there. I think the Arts Commission, as an example, started in 1971, I believe, before the Arts Office was there. They actually developed the Arts Office because of the work that helped the city, advised and helped the city to develop the Arts Office based on their tenure. So that's a real thing. Task forces do the same work. It's advisory. It's specific to the framework and the structure and the charter of the Film Task Force is very similar to the structure of the Music Commission and what will be the Film Commission when that is developed. So it's not the advisory and the work that each advisory body do are not a lot different. But I will echo Lacey and Myron's comments about the ordained portion of it, and that is really the difference. So I will pause with that.
And your position is changing at OFM, right?
Yeah. So if you want me to dive into
Sure.
OFM changes, I can
Yes.
absolutely do that. So Kate Becker mentioned earlier her move from the director of the Office of Film and Music to the director of the King County Creative at Dow Constantine's office, the executive's office, excuse me. What that was a big deal, and what that prompted was a long series of roundtables with the film industry and other industries, the music industry and other creative industries. And what developed out of that really was something that we'd all been talking about, and Kate was driving at OFM, the concept of the creative industries and the creative economy. And so in 2019, it was recommended by our new director at the time, new OED director, Bobby Lee, and myself, and in partnership with the Arts Office, to redevelop, and rethink the Office of Film and Music as a creative industries hub, which we have always acted as, just for the smaller industries, film and music industries primarily. And so that was the impetus of the development of the Creative Industries program, or the Creative Industries division, or whatever you want to call it, within the Office of Economic Development. So Office of Film and Music is still the Office of Film and Music, but not in name. There's a transition now that's happening that is changing that name, OFM, to Creative Industries. It's still the same function, still the same staff, and we're, I think, getting very close to hiring a director. I think that's a matter of days or weeks away. So there's still the same hierarchy and everything there. One of the things that we were able to do in 2019 is take my special events and film position and take the special events and create a new position for special events, and that would allow me to just focus on film. And so that's happened. So we have a special events staff, and then myself, I've just transitioned to the film program manager. So that's staying. Our permit specialist Taylor is still with us, of course. We have administrative staff that supports our work in film and special events. And so yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Okay, sure.
Does anybody have any questions for Chris before I get
Yes.
Melissa, go ahead.
I see Melissa.
Yeah, you were next anyway, Melissa.
Well, I'm just curious. I think it's really important to be clear that OED has not yet told the Film Task Force what the timeline is, what they want from us, other than just, hey, we want you to advise us on recovery. We haven't had a meeting in weeks. They have not responded to a public announcement that the Film Commission was postponed. They have not given a structure of what the rest of the Film Task Force's work is. And so I know it's really easy to say the Film Task Force is the same thing as the Film Commission, other than the ordained and outliving a mayor. But when the Film Task Force started their initial work, there was a structure and a layout as to what our timeline was going to be, what our directive was, and that's not happening with recovery right now. I know already that, the mayor and 2 of council members are, trying to work together on what that recovery, the federal money is coming in and what that's supposed to look like. And it's so far looking like it's specific to small businesses. And the Film Task Force has been here and nobody's been talking to us. So it doesn't feel as if really the city is obviously not using the Film Task Force and is very much sidelining the film industry and stakeholders in this process currently. So it's unfortunate that they postponed the Film Commission. If the Film Commission had been in place right now and active, had it followed its proper timeline, even with the pandemic, you would have had stakeholders in place advising on this whole process right now. So I think there's some real big structural opportunities that need to be brainstormed with stakeholders about recovery, and that's not just about individual grants for businesses, but how to grow and market the industry for all. And I think we're missing out on that currently. So I know you are stuck in a difficult position, Chris, but I really expected more of this mayor, and am deeply disappointed currently. I guess that's not a question.
Like to,
sorry.
And hope, go ahead, Myron, sorry.
Thank you. I know it's your show, but I'm just gonna jump in here anyway. Chris, you know what I'd like to know has there been any conversation about exactly when they would start these conversations up about the Film Commission, like start getting ready to seat it? I mean, they know now where the money's coming to, I believe. According to some of the charts that I've seen, they kind of have an idea of how much money they're getting. Do we know when? And I don't know if you can tell us this or not, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, and then I'll respond to Melissa's really great comments as well. 2022. So the focus, I'm not sure. So it's interesting. It's been a profound kind of planning and awareness and looking down the road process without a lot of details for the federal dollars. A lot of money is coming, and it's coming very soon, and it's at a high level of conversation that is not at an advisory conversation like the film or the music commission or the arts commission. But what will come from those decisions that are being made now will quickly get into that part of the conversation. What do we do with this, and how do we guide this, and where does this go, and what about this pocket, and those types of things. So my understanding and my working process is that 2021 is going to be 100% recovery, and not a lot of room for a lot of activity in developing the film commission. So the film commission really, to me, and my understanding, is a starting point of 2022. Get through the winter season, pick up where it's been left off, and it's pretty far along, and then move it forward from there in 2022. That's my understanding of the timeline for the film commission.
I just want to sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Amy.
I just want to also, we are in contact right now, to your question, Myron, about federal dollars. Like, we are in constant, not in regular conversation with Senator Cantwell's office and Senator Murray's office about those federal dollars, because we are also trying to access them. And, just for some context, there are federal dollars, but then the federal government puts rules around them. And then it becomes a matter of, like, how do we get the rules around the federal dollars to fit into what they want to prioritize that also works for creative industries. It has been, and maybe Kate, you can share some of your stories as well. Like, we are all struggling to figure out how to take these federal mandates and make them work for us. So it's not, I wish it could be as easy as me going to Cantwell's office and saying, I would like this amount of money to do all these great things for film. And I wish it was, and I have found it to be roadblock. I mean, it's not their fault, but there's roadblock after roadblock, because the federal government really does dictate how those monies are being used.
I would say that while the government agencies struggle or wade through that really thick mud, and it's really complicated, is what I'm hearing and learning. That while the government agencies, like the film offices, navigate all of that, that never precludes anyone from going to talk to directly to the council members who are working with the mayor, and then sharing with them advice on how to put together, the monies and where they should go when they figure out how to move them.
So with these talks about the federal money, Amy, Chris, is there anything, and I mean, for anybody, if anyone even has an idea of how to answer this question, is there any way that the film community could see that if there's a way that, I mean, we can ensure that, I mean, we're getting a piece of the federal recovery money?
So I'll bounce, if I could, Abby, I'll also, this is actually also kind of a response to Melissa's frustration about the film task force work not moving forward after we had talked a few weeks ago about next steps. In fact, we had to, just to be super transparent, we had hoped to meet with the film task force to do exactly that, I think a week and a half ago. And even that was pulled away just because we weren't ready yet. So I totally get and understand the frustration. It's been a couple months of, well, let's go, tell us what's going on. And yes, the city owes the film task force a charter, which we gave at the beginning, like Melissa said, at the beginning of 2020. Oh my gosh, it feels like years ago, the beginning of 2020. We owe that to the film task force. That is something that is just about ready to go. We owe to the film task force that final report review, so that all of the amazing, I think it was 36 or 40 recommendations between the committees on recommendations for what the city can move forward with. We owe to the Film Task Force a distillation of those 36 plus recommendations, which we believe connect with recovery. And then once we get that distillation down of 36 to a dozen or whatever it is, we need to sit down with the Film Task Force and say, how does this plug into those federal dollars that are coming in? And that's the way that we can answer that question, Abby, is taking that advice and that great work that the Film Task Force has already done, and then plug it in so that so that there's no missed opportunity. Once we navigate that muddy water that Amy is talking about and find that pocket of millions of dollars or whatever it is, how do we take advantage of that and then plug in those recommendations to support the film community and industry? And so that's where we are on that timeline as well.
So we took a different tact at the county, but I do want to double down on what Chris was saying about the complications of the funding. The original coronavirus relief funds that came through, we thought that was complex to navigate that. This was supposed to be simpler. It's actually more complex. The restrictions, the guidelines, the compliance requirements on this new funding are intense. I have been interviewing grants managers for the past month because the executive moved forward a $600 million recovery budget that includes $34.4 million in creative sector recovery funds. And now we are navigating, excuse me, those very complicated waters around all of that. So, but $3 million of that is for Harbor Island Studios. $2 million of it is to restart our event and festival sector, which has been terribly hard hit. $20 million is for the large arts and culture institutions. They are major employers. And the other $9.4 million is for culture to administer to small and mid-size arts and culture nonprofits. So, and heritage, they would want me to say heritage. So heritage as well in for culture. But so the executive moved forward, he moved that in March and the council just approved it last week. So it takes a while. It took 2 months for our county council to review and approve those funds. And now we are navigating those very complicated waters. So just wanted to add that. But Lacey has her hand up.
Go ahead, Lacey. We're not going to get to all of our questions. I'm sorry. And we're not going to get to all of the questions that have been coming in on Facebook Live, but hopefully we'll be able to answer some of them. So Lacey, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, one of the biggest issues of frustration with the Film Task Force members who have been working so hard for the last year and a half is, I appreciate that the city is trying to get its ducks in a row when it comes to these federal dollars, and that there's a bit of a dance to be done in terms of knowing what parameters are before engaging with the task force. But for the last year and a half, we were a very active working group that was that didn't need the city to have all the answers. It was like, here's what we're facing in the pandemic and also with our regular work, but also in the pandemic. And we were able to discuss and work together and advise. And there was a very dramatic shift when the new acting deputy director of the OED took over, to now there are decisions being made by the city that they then report to the task force. We are not asked for our opinions. For example, is it a good idea to postpone the film commission in light of the things that we have and in terms of the staffing hours we have? There was no discussion over, we're being told these things are happening, and when we have more information, we will follow up with you guys. And we have not had an active working meeting to do anything but discuss the fact that there's not going to be all the things that we were planning on doing since April, despite having a really amazing group of people who are very excited about getting this work done. So it's a source of immense frustration for those of us who have been working for this and who would be loving to help advise and structure how these federal dollars could potentially be used. Even if we don't know all of the regulations around it, we could at least be getting ready for when we do have these parameters locked down. And instead, we have been put completely on ice and told, no film commission for a while, and we'll talk to you guys when we're ready with what the next phase is going to be. And of course, there needs to be a little bit of that if we are changing course, but we have been, really, really put on in the freezer with our work. And we had such amazing momentum. And while we have such great movement happening at the county and such great movement happening at the state level, those of us who are in the know are incredibly concerned about how the city, specifically the city leadership, is really dragging their feet when it comes to supporting the film industry, when we have so much amazing momentum on recovery happening on many different levels. And recovery is important, competition is important, and if we don't have a city structure that's supporting us, it's going to really hurt our overall region. And we are feeling incredibly frustrated by that.
And concerned, not only frustrated, but concerned.
Yes.
Yeah. And disappointed.
Yeah.
Abby, do you want to take it? You had something you wanted
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like with all these talks that we're having, it's really important that, with the old mayor leaving and, us having a new mayor coming on board, there just has to be this importance of the film industry at the forefront of these, new politicians' minds. I know, Ben, at the Film Summit, we're supposed to be doing a mayoral candidate panel. Can you tell us a little bit more information about that?
See if I can figure out the unmute button. Yeah, we're at the Seattle Film Summit. We're attempting to do a candidate forum, but it'll just be focused on creative economy. We're not there to talk to them about any other their city policies other than where they stand on the creative economy and how they see that moving forward. And obviously, we're going to fill the room with creative economy constituents. There's your shortest answer of the night right there.
I know, Ben. Yeah. And you have nothing else to say?
Oh, I've got lots to say, but not necessarily on that particularly. But actually, yeah, why don't we take this opportunity to dive in? As the outlier here, it's interesting because, the Seattle Film Summit is just a grassroots endeavor. It was just a bunch of filmmakers that are like, hey, let's do what we can to kind of rise the tide, for lack of better terms. And I look at all the organizations, and by the way, thank you for having me on with you guys. And also thank all of you guys for doing what you do, because I think our constituency, our filmmakers in this community, if they only knew how much you guys bled for them and suffer. And I feel your disappointment and your struggle. And I'm just like, I want to hug you all. But to my point, you guys all have certain constituencies and guidelines. Amy at the state level has to follow the law written into her structure. OFM has to kind of handle Seattle proper. And so at the Seattle Film Summit, it's like interesting because we get to kind of navigate with none of these little restrictions. And we kind of like to view ourselves as like the oil between the gaps, like where can we help between the gaps? But one of the things I think it's important for us to start thinking about, and I'm reading between the lines as I hear you all talk, OFM is going to creative industries. I don't know when King County Creative was started or how that was started, but it feels like it's been recent, and Kate's been driving that puppy real strong. And then even at the state level, Amy has fired up Whip Smart, which is again about its creative economy and creative industry. And Amy said in the very beginning of this whole thing is that film is the cornerstone of creative economy because it umbrellas so many creative silos. And if you talk to somebody in the Film Office of Canada and ask about, like in Vancouver, how did that happen, they'll tell you easily, like as soon as all that money went into the film industry, every other creative silo rose around it. Some that aren't even associated with film, like book publishing, they all rose. So I think we all need to entertain this thought that we are coming out of unparalleled disruption in not just our market, all markets. And what I have noticed as I'm knocking on doors all over the place for money for the Seattle Film Summit, whether it's at the state level, county level, Arts Commission, the Department of Commerce, there is an unparalleled amount of money coming in. And you guys have kind of talked about this, the complications of it. But there's something in the air, that's a quotation from you, Amy, is that there's this kind of awareness that people are coming out of doors soon, and we need to focus on the things that are going to make them happy, which is music, movies, entertainment. And so there is this opportunity vibrating in the air. But I also think that we need to, as the film industry, we need to kind of adjust our view with this disruption. We need to change and realize this is our opportunity to pull all the creative silos together, because state leaders listen to two things. And I say this with all the love in my heart. They listen to votes and they listen to money. And we as a creative industry, as filmmakers, are a small silo. So what do we need to do? We need to pull the silos together, and everybody's doing this work in different ways. But as a film industry, we're facing some crazy evolution, but I think there's an opportunity for us to really start viewing ourselves not just as the film industry, but the creative economy, and how do we get all those silos closer and help them rise with us. And that's my rant, and I will step off my soapbox.
Ben, I was like, preach.
Sorry.
Seriously.
I just all came from listening to you guys. I'm like, yeah, creative economy. Yeah, screw them.
No, but this is literally the conversation that Virginia and I were having earlier, is that we have so many entities, right? Where can we come to make sure that Amy's job is easier, Kate's job is easier? Just like looking at all of these entities that are in our community right now. It's literally about how can we pull together and say, hey, we are a thing. We're not a hobby. We're a job. We're doing everything that we can. There are people who rely on film projects to pay their bills, to pay their rent, and it doesn't seem like that's being seen by the city itself, at least in my opinion. Oh, Amy, sorry.
So I appreciate you, Ben, so much mentioning WIF Smart, because it is the new, we launched a trade association to support creative workers and creative businesses. It is a partner organization to Washington Filmworks. To your point, Abby, we did a creative economy study, right? What WIF Smart is about raising the profile and the value of creativity in the state of Washington and getting people to work. 8.7% of Washington's GDP comes from creative industries. 6.4% of the workforce, creative.
So why don't we get more support?
Well, I think that, going back to Ben's comment, there is this momentum. That is why we started, WIF Smart in general. We are stronger together than we are apart, right? And I think that each individual sector sometimes gets nervous about being part of a whole. And at the end of the day, we do better together than we do in silos, right? That's one of the reasons why WIF Smart was started, because there's collective power within a collective rather than individual silos.
I would add to that, there is skewed statistics at the state level, and everybody feel free to fact check me here, but I've heard this from a pretty reliable source, which is the State Arts Commission, that we're I'm just going to say we're in the mid 40s / lower 40s of state funded, in all the 50 states, as far as how they fund art in their states. We're really low on the chart, right? Go ahead and correct that if you,
what I appreciate about that comment is that that is about grants. That's about granting. What WIF Smart is about the power and the economic vitality of the creative industries. That is the difference. We talk about how much we don't have versus how much we contribute.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is a fundamental difference between the arts and culture space and the creative economy space. Chris, Kate, and I, we work in the economy space.
Mhm.
You know, we need to raise that profile so that when the state is making investments, they make investments in the for-profit sector who bring family wage jobs and health and retirement benefits and all of those things. It's a very different conversation in general. And we need to do better at telling our story. So one of the things that I hope that people do is to go visit that WebSmart, our new website, BeWhipSmart, BeWhipSmart.org, right? It is about raising the profile and the value of what we do as industry to the economy and to work. And I think, you know, Ben and I have had this conversation, so I'm kind of jumping on where he started, which is, it is not, you know, grants are part of our equation, but we are drivers of the economy. And that's the story we need to tell, I think. And it's a very different shift. So sorry, that's my soapbox. I apologize.
If I can to tag on to that, and I don't know if you want to go into this Department of Commerce, Creative Industries, you know, Department of Commerce sector lead, but really, you know, I think what has to be defined, because I think you're absolutely right, Amy, is people need to understand the difference of for-profit and nonprofit, and that it's about economic development and it's about jobs. It's different from the Department of Arts and Culture. It's different from artisans. And so when we talk about creative economy and when we talk about creative industries, it's important to understand those differences, and that when we speak and build this narrative that we need to build, we need to define that very clearly, because too often time we become arts and culture. And I think building power, you're absolutely right. That's what's needed, is we need to build the power for the creative industries and speak to those industries that are within the film industry, the music industry, you know, web design, what have you. Go ahead, Amy.
So I just want to make the comment that we all know intrinsically, but the state does not understand, right? Of that workforce number, 64% of creative workers are non-traditional, which we know as gig workers, freelancers, whatever. So we don't show up in any of the data.
Right.
We don't show up anywhere. And so the state is making all of these policies without knowing who we are. So when my favorite story is, like, we have an oversight body called JLARC. They only said that there was like 1,000 workers in film in the state of Washington. And I know in our database, we have thousands, right?
Right.
And the reason why is because we don't show up in the data. And that is why the Film Summit is talking the way that they are, and the city and the county and WhipSmart is talking the way that we are, because we as industry need to make the change happen. And that's why we started WhipSmart, and that's why all of my partners here, who I get the great privilege to work with, get it. It's just getting us to work together to come up with what is next. So yes, yes, and yes is my answer.
Well, I wanted to go to something else too, is that, you know, I think if we approach the city council the way Melissa has constantly, she's been carrying the torch. I think we need to let people know, and Melissa, I'm going to ask you this, you know, who are the film supporting city council people? Maybe Kate knows the, you know, on the county council, you know, when we look at mayoral candidates, we need to support our film industry, our film community needs to support those people that know what the value of filmmaking here, and understand that a lot of it is a gig economy as well. You know, so Melissa, I just want you to talk a little bit about your engagement with the city council, the Seattle City Council.
Thanks, Virginia. I appreciate that. You know, not only is it who has supported us in the past, but it's really that, as Chris even spoke to earlier, we need to educate our council members. We need to educate our mayoral candidates, because they certainly are not necessarily film industry experts at all, nor do they understand what we do for a living, or that we have raised families in this industry and it's not just a weekend hobby, right? So candidates, city council candidate, city council members, Tammy Morales is the chair of the Community Economic Development Committee, and OED sits within that sector. So Tammy Morales is our go-to person. She is a fairly new candidate that started just before the pandemic hit. There is a lot of, she's just one of our newer council members, but she is our go-to person. You know, she is supportive, but I would like to see her be stronger. I think that we just need the film task force, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, was not able to get really build a strong relationship there. I think that's something that needs to happen through a future film task force and film commission. Peter Lewis has supported us and film sector. Lisa Herbold has certainly been there for a very long time and supports the industry as well, and wrote some of those statements of legislative intent in order to try and get a film commission in place. Same thing with Shama Sawant was supportive in the past. We have not had contact too much with her office in the recent year or so. As far as mayoral candidates, you know, the Film Summit is going to be doing a candidate forum, but that will be, correct if I'm wrong, Ben, here, but that'll be for the general election. Prior to that, for the primary right now, with all of the masses of candidates, the Theatrical Federation, which is a collection of the entertainment unions, we meet monthly, and we have put together for the entertainment industries a list of questions for the primary candidates. And I asked various members of the Film Task Force and miscellaneous individuals in the film industry for questions that the mayor candidates should be asked. So we hope to, there's about 5 questions about film, get all of those questions posed to the primary candidates, and then they're going to be videotaped, and that will be edited into a link for the industry. So that will be informational. I know that Lance Randall, who is running, James Keblis, has been informing quite a bit about the film industry. I know that Lorena Gonzalez, obviously our city council president right now, is running, and you know, we spoke with her a couple of years ago about the film industry. She is supportive. She hasn't necessarily stood out as a, you know, at the forefront, but there's a lot of educating to do. So I would highly encourage, and I think that later the Film Task Force is in the next week or so going to be developing some form letters and some links to the mayor's office, to Deputy Mayor Washington's office, as well as to all city council members. You know, it's just like with legislators. You need to contact council members, and not just your own council members, but speak about what you do for a living. If you own a home, if you're raising a family on your income, if you're a member of a union, what union is that? And so activism right now, not only to the importance of the film industry, but I would say also for the importance of forming the legislation for a film commission. I don't care if they've said that they've put it off. Perhaps the commission isn't going to be seated right now, but if we have the legislation already 90% written, there's no reason that a commission legislation couldn't be written so that the new mayor immediately starts to seat somebody. That's what I recommend. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So we are going to go over a little bit because I know a few of you can stay. I want to get to at least one question here, and also then we want to go, Abby and I want to go to Kate because she said she had an announcement. Beth Barrett of SIF has been watching, and she's also on the Film Task Force. And this is a question that harkens back to what you were saying before, Amy. And Beth asks, how do we change what counts as businesses that support the film industry? So not just film specific companies, but those adjacent businesses that contribute to the impact of the film economy. Because that is important. You know, the film industry affects so many other businesses. I mean, even small productions, you know, just spend a lot of money in local community. So how do we change those stats? Anybody? Is that an unanswerable question?
So quiet.
Well, I mean, we certainly have an advantage in that we get all of that data, but this goes back to a really important part of telling our own story, right? So as an example, when we know of a production that is, let's say we have a national car commercial film in Eastern Washington, we will be in touch with that production and we will ask questions like, where did you put your crew up and in what hotels? Where did you have a caterer? Where did they go for, on the weekend for lunch? And we start to weave together this story about, because when you look at any elected official, it is about, their communities and the place that they live and the impact, the positive impact that it has on their communities. And so while it isn't the kind of data that Washington FilmWorks has at our fingertips, it is anecdotal, and it is a story that we weave that means something to the people that we tell it to in different jurisdictions. So help us, city, county, state, do that work. If you are working out of town and working someplace, let us know where you're working. Let us know who you impacted. Let us help us as industry tell that story. The other thing that I'm going to ask in anticipation of what we think will be a legislative push in 2022, I'll go back to that anecdote about the state believes we have only 1,000 people that work in the film industry. I know that that's not right. I'm going to ask everyone who is listening to please register in our production directory, right? We don't have a central hub except for our production directory of where you can list all the people that work or all the businesses that support. I know Virginia has anecdotes and stories about this, but we have this resource. It's free to list yourself. You have to have one film credit, and then we can go to the legislature and say, look, we have thousands of people working in this industry and thousands of businesses that are from different industries besides film. WashingtonFilmworks.org, it's completely free, right? And it is the one thing that I will ask you to do coming out of this conversation, because what we need is data. And that's where the question started. We need data. We have a resource that will literally give us the data we need to succeed. All you have to do is sign up. It's completely free. You completely control your listing.
Yes,
and
I was going to get to that too. I was going to ask you that, Amy, because that is one of the things that is always been on my mind, is that, people really need to fill out those forms, and people need to really answer those surveys that you send out, because how else are we going to get that data?
I put the link in the comments, Amy, so that people have the link to go to register.
I would even give that pitch a little further and ask producers to ask that lumber shop to enter themselves into the list, to ask that tent vendor to enter themselves, so that there's more of a connection with businesses as well. That's one of the things that the city has, like Amy is describing with crew, businesses related to film production are really hard to track. So if there's a platform like Washington FilmWorks is providing to make that connection, that is super important for business as well.
If I can real quick, I think that what also, the more, Amy, that you are working with the Department of Commerce, I think there's some real opportunity there. Obviously, and the pandemic showed a tremendous amount of safety nets that weren't there for freelancers and such. And so there's a lot of work to be done at the state level in terms of the Department of Labor and Industries or unemployment, or the way data is not counting all these other sectors, right? So figuring out and having a creative industries lead in the Department of Commerce, or somebody that can help us do the work that's at that governmental, informational classification level, I think is super important, that needs to also, will be moving forward, one would hope.
Yeah, and that is exactly why Whip Smart exists. So thank you for that.
Abby, should we go to, I think we've actually, I think some of the things that were talked about answered some of the questions we had prepared. Should we go to the questions that are coming in on
Yeah,
Facebook?
we're getting a lot of comments and questions, so I'd love to try and get some of those answered.
Yeah,
I
while we still have you all here.
Yeah, and I do know that Kate has a quick announcement also. And if Kate wants to give that now before she leaves, that would be amazing.
Thank you, Abby. I'll be happy to. It is news that I am breaking here that I think only the Executives Film Advisory Board and my immediate colleagues know right now. There's a piece of it that I am super excited to tell you. I'm getting 2 new staff people to work with me, a project manager and an equity strategist. So one of them is being offered the position tomorrow, and the other one we're starting interviewing for right away. But I did want to let you know this. The episodic production that is in Harbor Island Studios right now is there through August. And then we are taking an intermission at Harbor Island Studios to make capital improvements and improve the soundstage further so that we can reopen in January 2022 with a new and improved soundstage. So as Vicki and some others who have been working in Harbor Island Studios can attest, there are some challenges still. We got beautiful sound walls built, but we didn't do the roof because we were pressed for time, and the seagulls are driving people crazy. They're interrupting production, and they are protected marine animals that cannot just be, water, using super soakers can't just be chased off the roof. They are protected marine animals, but they are. There are some big decisions that the Executives Film Advisory Board will certainly advise on. There's enough room for a 3rd stage. There's plenty of room for a 3rd stage, but do we want a 3rd stage? Do we want a state-of-the-art, cutting edge technology? What's the next wave of film industry? Do we want photogrammetry and LED and immersive technology in there, or do we want a 3rd soundstage? That is a decision that has to be made. Some things, logistics around what goes where in the studio. Currently, the mill is up by the front bay doors. It needs to be moved. People can't hear in offices. There's all these challenges. Parking is a huge issue. Thankfully, the city of Seattle, the Office of Film and Music, and SDOT came through with a parking lot that is just down the way from Harbor Island Studios. We would, in a pandemic, it would have been so hard to function without that parking because the drivers could only have 1 person in each of their vehicles. That was the COVID protocol. So anyhow, there will be improvements made. We're doing a charrette to help flush all this out. The Executives Film Advisory Board has already put forward their 24 top priorities for Harbor Island Studios. So much work will commence after this episodic production, but also Harbor Island Studios will not be open this fall while that happens. That we may need a complete roof replacement. The roof is leaking in a few places. It can't have a proper soundstage with a leaking roof. So that's why we had to get that $3 million allocated so that we can make these capital improvements. And that is the announcement I wanted to share with you all. So.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know that people have been asking a lot of questions. So I think this is the easiest time to try and incorporate some of those since some of our panelists are able to stay a little bit later. One of them, Kate, before you leave, someone was asking, are tours available at Harbor Island?
They are not while this production is in there, in part because of the film COVID protocols and also because they're developing proprietary content, but we will be having a party inside Harbor Island Soundstage. And we may, I think we're going to try to do that. I have a big meeting tomorrow. We're going to try to do that before we start the improvements. And then we'll have another one, a ribbon cutting, once all the improvements are done. But we want to have a big party, and we've been working on some ideas of how we get the whole film industry in there. Because as many of you know, Vicki and I and some other members of the Executive Film Advisory Board had to tour people in groups of 5 to get everyone to be able to see Harbor Island Studios. We did a lot of tours of groups of 5, but we couldn't get to everybody, obviously. And we want everyone in the film industry to be able to come in and see Harbor Island Studios. So yes, we're figuring something out. I don't have that date to announce yet, but it will be forthcoming. I'll make sure Women in Film knows, that's for sure.
You talked about a virtual tour too. We have many things on the EFAB's list, with that being one of them.
Well, that would be great, since I got lost in the early stages of seeing the stages, as you well know. Kate was trying to get me there, but I was too far gone. It was like I couldn't turn around and come back.
It was
I think
definitely.
Lacey has her hand up.
Lacey?
I love that Kate always calls on me even when she's not running the meetings. It's like an EFAB meeting all over again.
The show. She always runs the show.
As we were in the county segment, I just wanted to make a quick note to sort of like ping off of what Melissa was saying about the mayoral candidates. Also, I guess if you get a call from a mayoral candidate, like every now and then I actually pick up an unknown number because I'm in production, and so sometimes I pick up, and if it's someone calling from a campaign, start talking to them about film and ask them what their candidate thinks about, supporting the creative industry, and start that conversation. So get that on the list. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that our executive, Dow Constantine, is running for re-election. He is a major supporter of the creative industries, and it would behoove all of us to absolutely support his campaign in any way, shape possible. You can donate, you can volunteer, whatever you need to do, and make sure you share with your friends that him staying in office is a real big part of us continuing at Harbor Island Studios. And he created the wonderful office that moved Kate over to the county, and we are so lucky that we now have a city, state, and county office all focused on the creative industry. So tell your friends.
And he also did a presentation over at the Seattle Film Summit, right, Ben? With Kate too. I think that's where I first met Kate, actually.
our last in-person year in 2019. Yes, Kate and Dow were there, and yes, and I know for a fact, like, Kate is a big advocate of Dow, of course, but this is a person who loves the arts and is also fighting for the creative industries. So.
Right. The only thing I guess I would add to that too is that, we have so much work to do in educating so many of our politicians at the city and state level. We do not have to work on education at the county level so long as Dow is in office. So let's keep him there.
Yeah. Can I go? Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it, Virginia.
I need to interject something here, if you can hear me. Yeah. So I need to interject something as a member of the Board of Women in Film. We are not endorsing any candidate. That is not we cannot do that. We're providing a venue for information here. So I just want to make that clear to everyone.
Yeah, that was Lacey Levitt saying that. That wasn't that was Lacey Levitt saying that.
No, and everybody out there, just do your homework. That's what I'm just asking. Do your homework, do the work to see who does support us in the and what we do and what we do for a living, what we love to do for a living. So there, go ahead. Go ahead, Abby.
Amy, I know you have to leave, but there was a question from the audience, and I wanted to know if you could hopefully answer it quickly before you had to go. But someone asked, how can Washington Filmworks support smaller productions that have living wages, but are not union? And you're muted.
That doesn't work when you're muted. One of the programs that we do have is called the Innovation Lab. It is a smaller funding program that allows Washington Filmworks Board of Directors to approve projects. It gives us $350,000 a year to approve projects that are less than the minimum in-state spending thresholds. That all sounded really bureaucratic. But what it is intended to do is to support emerging filmmakers and filmmakers using new technologies that wouldn't typically qualify for our incentive program. During this weird COVID time, so we also have an advisory board, the Film Leadership Council, and we've had them on board with us for, I think, 3 years now, since 2018. Yep, that's 3 years. We were redeveloping this, this program in response to what we were hearing from the community. In this really interesting moment, we're reinventing it again. So my response to that is, we have something for you. We are in a redesign phase to make it better for the community that we serve. So stay tuned. And I feel like we've been saying this for so long because we have been, because of COVID and all of these other things, but there is something for you at Washington FilmWorks. We're just trying to make it a better program. And I think that is one of the things. We have a subcommittee of the Film Leadership Council that is dedicated to redesigning this program, the Innovation Lab. And we are thinking way bigger as we think about legislation. How can we do more good for more people, and how can we make that program bigger and better? So please be patient, but that is one of the things that we are literally redesigning right now. So stay tuned. I hear you. I get this question a lot, but FilmWorks is not only about the big budgets, it's about the emerging filmmakers too, and I want you to know that.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to go feed my 14-year-old. He hates me right now. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And I want to say, you know, that some of the, if we don't get to a lot of these questions, we'll go through them and send them to the people we think can answer them, and we'll put them on our Facebook page.
Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us tonight. I know you have to go also. We're very appreciative of you having conversations with us this evening.
I really appreciate the conversation, and thank you.
And I want to, before you leave, I want to say that Jacob Leander said, "Can I point out how good Chris Swenson's beard looks?"
Well, earlier it was the sunset, definitely. See you guys. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Virginia, I know that there were more questions in the group for our group here. Unfortunately, Chris had to leave before we could ask the OFM question, but there was a question here. How can we harness more private sector dollars in addition to federal and state money? There's so much money in this town.
Yeah, good question. Thoughts, anyone?
Well, you know, I mean, I think this is one of these conversations, you know, that from a state, city, and county, I mean, Kate, you're still here, but the conversation is always, how do we get public-private partnership conversations started? And we are in a city with so much tech and so much money. It is ludicrous that we aren't further along in this conversation. And I think, you know, there's just a lot of work to be done, I've got to say, in terms of our industry working together and communicating with one another. Oregon has OMPA, Oregon Media Production Associations. We don't have a professional association in our state, and I'm working with a few other people trying to make that happen. I don't know how long it will take. It certainly isn't going to happen overnight, but I think that that we are far behind advocating for ourselves due to the fact that we don't have a professional association like all industries do, who work with one another, and not only on networking events, but on you know, lobbying for things that our industries need. So yes, we should have some private-public partnerships, especially with places like Amazon and places like Microsoft. And but you know, that has yet to still be developed. That's all I can really throw out there.
I just have to mention that Ben's doing some of that. So
yeah, I was going to say that too.
private sector to Seattle Film Summit?
Yeah, I want to just, I mean, I'm glad Lacey brought this up a bit ago, and Melissa. We've heard this term a lot tonight, advocacy. And I've got to tell you, if you're a filmmaker in this city and you're passionate about seeing this industry grow, you do not have the comfort of just focusing on your art. Focus on your art, but you have to learn to become an advocate, and you have to do it now. Well, what's that mean? Advocacy? I know when I started doing it, I'm like, I don't want to talk to a stinking politician. I could barely put paragraphs together that make sense. Don't put me in front of a politician. But the bottom line is, I'm going to go full circle to what I've started to say, and then Amy's passion cut it off, is that we're 46th in funding, right? Like whether it's grants and all that. But as of 2018, we are the #2 arts and cultural economy in the country. 46th in funding, #2 in economy. So there's your disconnect from our leaders. I mean, I'm sure I'm painting with broad strokes here. So I'm sure somebody could say, well, there's this and this and this. But those two numbers alone, for somebody who doesn't want to dive deeper, like why would the state want to fund more when we're the #2 arts and cultural economy in the country? So we, as Amy and several other people have said tonight, we have to get better at telling our story. And we have to show them the gap between these two statistics that are not telling the truth. And so I know Amy is at with the Film Leadership Council. She's teaching a bunch of us to be advocates. But I will tell you, private funding, this is one thing I have learned. Private funding follows the lead of civic leadership. They're not going to dump a whole bunch of money into things if they see their civic leaders going down a different lane. So it starts with the civic leaders, get them excited, and then you get them excited, involved, and then the corporations and the private funding, once they'll want to come to these parties, they'll want to come to these sessions, and they're listening to the senator and like, oh yeah, I'm going to invest because the senator says so. So it's we got to start with our leaders, and private funding will follow their lead.
Yeah, I think that's really
completely agree.
important. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I wanted, this made me think of something else with the city. And Chris is gone now, but this is a little bit separate from OFM, but I think Ben is absolutely right in saying that, and that I mean, it's a chicken and egg. You need both. You need the citizens advocating to the politicians to then be talking to, it's an entire ecosystem, right?
Mhm.
The mayor started a small business advisory council a few years ago, and I was lucky enough to be on that council. I served a term of 2 years, and I just rotated off that a few months ago. And when I was on it, there were only 2 creative industry representatives on there. I was on there basically representing all of film and VR, which is not a lot for just one person to do. And then there was Lee, who runs Crybaby Studios, music recording and band practice studio, was also on there as well. And our terms both ended during the pandemic, and currently that advisory council has 0 members of the creative industry on it. It is very restaurant heavy. There's a little bit of retail, but frankly, it's mostly restaurants. And I think this just goes to show some of this, like specifically the folks running the city right now do not understand the creative industry. And we are going to have some action items. The Film Task Force and specifically are going to be putting out some action items in the next couple of days on social media about what we need to be doing to be advocating for our industry to representatives of the city, both at the city hall level as well as council. So please stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, since we can actually come to a close on that note, what we all as filmmakers can do, as individuals to support the work that is happening right now is making sure that you're supporting film-friendly candidates. Attend meetings, especially city council meetings. They give you chances to actually speak. In those minutes, you get 2 minutes, and you can say a lot in 2 minutes. Support, make sure that you're also supporting film-friendly politicians Write letters, know who supports the film community, not just mayoral candidates, but city council members also. Answer surveys so the state knows how many there are of us. I put the link for Washington Filmworks inside the comments under this specific panel that we're having. So there's an opportunity right there for you. You don't have to go and Google or search for it. It's right there for you to sign up and know what is happening around your neighborhood with work, supporting local productions. Sign up for newsletters and make it easy for people to raise their voices.
Can I add one more thing? I'm so sorry, Abby.
No, go
But
for
you
it.
got to be fired up. You know, we as a filmmaking community have to understand that this is our time to shine. Never before in the history, at least since I've been alive, has the country needed us more. They have a demoralized population and they need to get excited, and the leaders know that. So this is our time to educate ourselves and become advocates. It's our time to strike now. That's just what I want to say.
I always question, do the leaders know that? We know it. Where did everybody turn? Who did they turn to? They turned it to the creators when we were going through this pandemic. But I think that'll be, I hate to end on a sour note, but I worry about that it'll quickly turn again and our value will not be acknowledged. So going back to all the things, all the lists that Abby just said, we need to, this is part of galvanizing the community. We need to speak up and be visible and tell our little stories. That's what we did to the city council. Just, 2 minutes. And I said, I'm a taxpayer. I raised my child here. And I did it by working in the film industry, like that. Even those little stories, they need to hear that. And they need to hear that in Olympia as well. We've learned that on film day when we go down there. They need constant stories. They need people coming down and talking to them, and not just on film day. So.
And not adding on a sour note at all, Virginia. I honestly believe this year, last year, we have had the ability to speak up so much for what is right. I am so appreciative of our community. I'm appreciative of the opportunities that I've been getting with working with the film task force. I've just seen so many people now who have been advocating so much, and it is so great to be a part of all of that that's happening. And I know that we hate to ask for more, right? Because we're all so tired and frustrated. And literally, this is the reason, if we can have so many more voices to be a part of that, it'll be so helpful to unburden that load that a lot of us are taking. So if you listen to this panel and you get out there and you advocate as much as possible, become a part of those city council member meetings, let them get tired of hearing about us over and over again until they finally do something. I feel like things can actually change. We finally have programs that are now instituted to help with representation and inclusivity, which is very important. But now we can do so much more. And what happens is when you use your voice, that's when you actually start making change. I want to thank everyone so much for coming. This was an amazing and groundbreaking panel. I'm so appreciative for all of you. Thank you to the Board of Women in Film, and thank you so much to our Second Tuesday committee. Please make sure you join us again for our continuing Second Tuesdays of the month. We do this every single month.
Abby, can I say one thing?
No.
I just want
to.
I just want to say thank you.
I get to say something too.
Okay, I just want to say thank you, and I just want to say the Women in Film is great for having this. It's been very, very. It's been a great meeting, and also want to say I've been to Harbor Island, and I was in the sound department. I kind of brought home a friend. I wanted to let you know. times, you know. You can't
How
beat them,
long
you gotta
have you
join
been
them. You know
planning
what I mean?
That is great. Thank you. Myra.
Not to end on a sour note.
Oh
I
God.
just
Oh,
screenshotted that
man.
and you will be having that used against you. I
It's
promise.
just a little too soon. I'm sorry.
I'm just telling you, all of this is recorded, so it is out on the internet forever. Thank you. So much for
Yeah.
that,
All right, and I just want to thank our board again, Women in Film. We all work so hard, and thank you, Lisa Hammond, our president, who wasn't able to be here tonight.
Yes.
And just we do this every second Tuesday of the month, and Abby and I are hoping we're going to take a vacation in July and then see you all in August. You know, maybe that'll be in real life. You know, maybe we can be outside for a summer party. So hopefully we'll do that. But yeah, thank you all for being here. And I just want to ask the film community to participate in the vibrancy and the creativity and the health of our industry, and just let's, you know, keep on going. And I'm going to say taillights for now.
Yeah. Thank you again, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.